I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Thursday, December the 1st. If you're finding this report and you find it periodically, or this is the first time you found it and you would like to find it more regularly, we've got a really simple way for you to do that. You can text the word flash to 209 Corbett. And then my name is not Corbin. That's one of my pet peeves. It's Corbett with 2 T's. You can text the word flash to 209 Corbett, and you will get the feeder flash sent to you straight to your phone. You can watch it first thing every morning. I'm doing it every morning. All of you guys can watch it every morning if you want to. I realize you don't always have time to do it, but if you do find some value in it, you're going down the road with one of these new Bluetooth phones in your fancy pickup, you can listen to it while you go down the road or something like that. But that is an easy way for you to do it. Regular text fees may apply, but other than that, it doesn't cost anything for that, and it might be an easy way for you to find this report every day. I want to talk to you about watching out for your grazing rights. Now, this is something that I may have never touched upon, and I'm not as educated on it as I am the markets, of course. I did grow up in New Mexico, in eastern New Mexico. We ran cattle on a ranch that fell under Kiowa National Grasslands rule, and there was a lot of rules that were applied to what we had to do about turning cattle out there. The fences had to be so high off the ground so the antelope could go under, and had to be so low that the deer could go over, and then if the elk wanted to go through, they just went through. You know, you have different rules you have to go through, and if you've got some good forest people that you're dealing with at some level there, it works out pretty good if they've got some kind of common sense, but otherwise they can make your life miserable. But I want to bring to attention, a feeder flash gang member had sent me an email that included this article that I want to visit about a little bit, and it was an opinion article in an online publication called Sierra Nevada Ally. And what this opinion writer did, and he was I assume he was a very green, very leftist, very tree-hugging type of an individual, but he was a biologist of some kind. But he basically took some research that your checkoff dollars help pay for through the University of Wyoming, that did a research on the economic impact of public land livestock grazing. And then he twisted that whole report around to make it fit his narrative. What he come out with was something that showed to be pretty scathing to any expense or any devotion of land and resources that we have to public cattle grazing, or sheep too, but I'm mostly going to talk about cattle. But first of all, he said Wyoming is completely insignificant, but when it comes to cattle production, I realize that Wyoming is down in the midway of total numbers of cattle, but it's fairly dry out there, so you can't run that many cattle there. But Wyoming is one of 9 states that has more cattle than it does people. In fact, it's ranked 5th if you look at that, and that would be pretty important there. But he said that you know, devoting all this land and all the resources that we use and government expense to having this cheap government land lease to certain ranchers is not a good use of that. And he says of all that land, and he also talks about some of the other western states, but particularly talks about Wyoming because it fits his narrative the best. But he said in Wyoming, instead of running all these cattle, which they have 1.3 million cattle in Wyoming, a lot of Wyoming is public grazing land. He said if we didn't run cattle on there, we could run 400,000 elk. or we could run 160,000 wild horses, or we could have 1.2 million mule deer. What the hell would we do with all them? I don't understand why we would want that many. And then who would manage the elk or the wild horses or the mule deer? You know, they want all of them to die of old age, so overcrowding is going to be a problem. They can't just tell the rancher out there how many he can run, and then he can keep back heifers or cull his herd and keep everything like they want it all the time. You know, who's going to be out there taking care of them? And he talks about, you know, how we want that for recreation and we want hunters and everything out there. But, you know, for the most part, pretty much everybody that's got an orange stocking cap is getting to hunt as much as they want to hunt. You know, just because you have, you know, 10 times as many elk or deer out there doesn't mean that you're going to have 10 times as many people wanting to draw tags to go out there and do that. It's just, you know, it was, if you read that article, the longer you read it, the madder it makes you get. He says there's very few native people out there minding those cattle and sheep. It's pretty much all done by Peruvians. You know, I don't know. There's little towns out there. There's people servicing those ranchers that live in those areas. There's teachers teaching their children. There's people running the grocery store, running the post office, running the feed store. You know, it's kind of worked for a long time out there. He did note the extremely cheap rate that your ranchers get to run those cattle on there, and it is pretty extremely cheap when you look out west compared to what you know, leases would cost you in other areas. But there's not a lot of improvements out there. You kind of got to be set up to do it. And in many areas of the West, on these public grazing lands, the leases are tied to the deeded acres, which are inflated many times of what the deeded acres are actually worth to get the lease that goes with, you know, to get the lease that goes with the ranch. And you know, if you just went in there and pulled that from people, that would not be fair at all to the people that overpaid for the deeded acres so that they could get to the government lands that are tied to it. But he went on to talk about how cattle just abuse, you know, the prairies, and they wallow in shit in the streams where your wildlife don't do that, and the cattle graze on the, you know, the vegetations on the stream sides, and I guess the wildlife doesn't do that. I've never seen any wild horses that really worried too much how much damage they were doing to the land or any wildlife for that matter too. But it was just very ridiculous. But I'm telling you people, as we continue to move further left in our politics and in our big populations and the votes are, I keep leaning a little bit more left, you're going to get more and more pressure from these types of groups and these types of people and these types of people that publish things, and they're going to put more and more pressure on that. And I know you feel that pressure all the time, spending time out in Nevada and doing a lot more traveling than I've been doing the last 6-8 years here with this type of job, and I'm getting to learn more about how people live that rely on public lands for their grazing. You know, most of the time those public lands are at elevation, and you can run them up there part of the time, and then you got to come back down to some ground that you own to run them the rest of the year. I'm not sure how this individual thinks. Well, this individual doesn't understand how to manage anything like that. I don't know who's going to manage the health and the reproduction health on all these wildlife out there like a rancher does on his cattle. But I'm telling you, they're coming after you guys. And I realize that it would not be sustainable for you to be able to stay out there if they went up on your leases significantly, or took them away or took more of them away, and I know they're doing that all the time. Even went so far as to cite a new study that said that cattle grazing actually increases wildfires. Now, that's about the most ignorant statement I've ever heard. Yeah, okay, the more fuel out there, I guess the fewer wildfires that they have, it's impossible. It reminds me of several years ago when they had one of those wildfires out there in California, and it was threatening the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library, and there was a big amount of vegetation behind it that hadn't been managed, and they knew that fire was coming. They turned absorbent amount of goats out there and got that stuff ate off in a hurry, and whenever the fire came, it went right by and didn't bother the Presidential Library. You guys remember that story. But keep track and watch your grazing rights, folks, because they're going to be coming after them. Let's talk about your board on Wednesday. Live cattle futures for December up 40 cents at 153.07. February was up 87 at 155.67. Back months were up 27 to up 70, kind of the direction that we feel like things ought to be going. January feeder cattle were up big, up 247 at 180.47. March feeders up 227 at 183.45. Back months were all up big from 177 to 205. Corn was down 3 3/4 cents a bushel at 662. Beans were up 10 at 14.69 and a half, and I guess beans are just going to go to the moon. Let's talk about your fat cattle trade, which did develop on Wednesday. We've pretty much established the market. In the northern plains, it's going to be 157. We haven't really established a dress trade yet, but your southern plains is going to be 155. That's not a big gainer, but it is steady to a buck higher. So Iowa had 600 head confirmed through the first part of the day on Wednesday, all at 157. That's what's significant. We're not seeing any 153, 4, or 5 in the northern plains. Nebraska, 1,300 head confirmed, all at 157 also. Kansas, they traded the bulk of their trade already, 7,700, all at 155. And he said, well, we had 155 last week. Yeah, but we had a significant amount of 154 last week in the southern plains, and we haven't had that this week. So we're on the plus side, guys. Texas, 8,200 head, all at 155. You could call some of that basis jumping. But for the most part, when you're gaining a little bit of ground, especially after a big week where you gained, $3 to $5, you can't be too upset when the board, didn't go up during that and then started the week on a downer this week. And as much as we hate to admit it, we're kind of a slave to the board. Box beef cutout values were kind of mixed again, and we continue to see that choice select spread widen after it had narrowed down to about 20 bucks, and this week it's done nothing but widen. But choice cuts up 14 cents at 254.88, selects down 81 at 225.01, and that choice select spread is nearly $30 again just in the last few sessions. Slaughters running at a good pace, 384,000 through the first 3 days of the week. That's 2,000 less than last week, but remember, we didn't have anything for Thanksgiving, and we will have this Thursday, and it's 15,000 more than the same week a year ago. Talk about what else is going on. Livestock Risk Services, based out of their offices there at the Exchange Building at the Oklahoma National Stockyards in Oklahoma City. Dakota Moss offices right there. If you're going in there to Oklahoma City to trade with them, or you're coming by there to check the market, go in and visit with him about LRPs. He's an LRP specialist. He's done it in areas all over the country. He's licensed in almost every cattle production state. He's got a lot of other agents working with him all around the area. And ask him about locking in a price for spring-born calves. And if you look at those strike prices, they look pretty handsome, especially for you guys that are sitting in areas that you're not feeling that you're getting the most out of the market, give them a call at Livestock Risk Services and see about locking in a price. It doesn't really matter what your calves bring. It's about what it allows you. So you want to get a call in on that. Let's talk about your feeder cattle market. Your real-time index on DV auction late in the day on Wednesday sitting at 176.42. That was up 92 cents. So we were up from the end of last week to Monday, and then we were down a day, and then now we've been back up. So we're going back on the positive side with the board finally realizing that the market's going up. Don't forget, here on Thursday, there's several big sales if you guys are looking for calves or yearlings. Ogallala Livestock Auction, Ogallala, Nebraska's got 4,500 head for a big sale on Thursday. Mitchell Livestock Marketing in Mitchell, South Dakota, talked to Jared Herman there the other night, and he's got about 6,000 head, mostly calves, but they'll be fancy, guys. And you can view and bid that sale on dvauction.com at Mitchell Livestock Marketing. Also, Primetime Livestock Video through Joplin Regional Stockyards. They've got about 40 lots, and they're all, of course, load lots are bigger, and they're all going to be really long time weaned calves or old crop yearlings. So if you're interested in getting some of those cattle bought out in the country, get on to Primetime Livestock Video on Thursday, and you can get to that through Primetime Livestock Video. You can get to that through JoplinStockyards.com or through dvauction.com. Let's talk about your markets on Wednesday. Your big sales, OKC West, El Reno, Oklahoma, 9,700 head. Compared to 2 weeks ago, feeders were mostly steady. Calves, 8 to 12 bucks higher. Spots, 20 bucks higher. Well, part of the reason the calves were that much higher is because they had bigger bunches of more uniform, higher quality calves, mostly because they had the Oklahoma Quality Beef Network in there, and they were featuring those cattle this week, which it helped the quality of the calves, helped the uniformity, the lot size, and everything. So it made the calves sell that much higher, but they were probably going to be higher anyway. But the winter wheat outlook is much improved since the last time they had a sale, because most of the area had seen some pretty decent rains in that country, and it's looking like you could probably turn some little doodlers out there and have some wheat pasture cattle, which we didn't think we were going to get that here several weeks ago. But you look at a pull of some cattle through El Reno, Oklahoma, and I pulled the 400 to 900 pound lots of 100 head or more, and you get a pretty good cross section of what the cattle are bringing. And you can just look at them right here and pause this if you need to, but a couple of stick out deals of 100 head or more lots through your middle weights. You had 196 head of 586 pound steers in El Reno bring 211.50. That's as much as they bring anywhere, people, and it's right there in central Oklahoma. How about 197 head of 812 pound steers bring 174.75? Pretty respectful also. Let's talk about your Zoeta stick out sale of the day. Be north of there in Dodge City, Kansas at Winter Livestock. They had 3,500 head, but look at the trend here compared to 2 weeks ago. Feeder steers were 5 to 8 bucks higher, heifers $4 to $6 higher. Look at this automated market report from Winter Livestock in Dodge City. Look at your best tested weights. You can read along there with me if you want to. 236 head of 5-weight steers in Dodge City, average 547 pounds with a weighted average price of $197.19. 311 head of 6-weight steers, average 646 with a weighted average price of $185.45. Go to the heifers. 320 head of 5-weight heifer calves, average 557 with a weighted average price of $173.61, and 266 head of 6-weight heifer calves, average 637 with a weighted average price of $166.98. Good sale there in Dodge City, Kansas. Going to give you several quotes from all around the country. How about out east at Bluegrass Stockyards in Albany, Kentucky. Feeder Flash gang member Jacob Key from Cookeville, Tennessee, he sold his yearlings on the video there. It's the Bluegrass Stockyards video out of Albany. 3 loads of 950-pound steers sold right off his place at $171.95. That would be a hell of a quote for their address. How about Parsons Livestock Auction in Parsons, Kansas? They sold some really green, lighter weight yearlings there. 111 head of them weighed 796, bring 185.75. How about some peewee calves? We don't talk about them very often. Sydney Livestock Market Center in Sydney, Montana sells 61 head of 394-pound steers. You can just see them, a ring full of them. Little bitty dudes there with a 3 as a front figure, which helped the price out quite a bit. They bring $269.50. Wow. My friend and former co-worker Tom Walters from up in Nebraska, he was at Huss Livestock Market in Kearney, Nebraska, give me the heads up on 123 head of thin old crop yearling steers there. They weighed 860 and bring $198 in Kearney, Nebraska, people. But the most impressive quote that I saw anywhere on Wednesday, in your Macrocin, no BS, top quote for the day, come out of Stockman's Livestock Market in Yankton, South Dakota. Not the fat cattle sale, the feeder cattle sale. The Jedlicka steers, 287 head of them, weighed 956, bring $194. And that's your feeder flash for Thursday.